How am I feeling about the Packers not being in the playoffs?
I am dead inside.
That sums it up. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Everything is pain. Grossi. And today, it is the biggest power rankings of the year. It is wild card, super wild card weekend. That's right, 14 teams have entered into the playoff tournament. Only one will be crowned champion and will win Mortal Kombat. Or at least that's what I think. I don't know. I imagine that's what they do in college football. I don't watch. But we got some games, and we'll talk about that tomorrow with predictions. But as of right now, we are going to rank all 14 teams currently in the postseason. And I gotta say, at first glance, there's a whole lot of mid here, in which the NFC is pretty darn weak. There's two really good, consistent teams. Over in the AFC, it's not much better, but it's a little better. There's three really good, consistent teams. And honestly, it could make for an exciting postseason. I know there's a lot of divisional matchups this weekend, and that's kind of meh. But we're going to head into these power rankings and see which team is currently number one. And so, starting at the bottom, now we hear number 14, you got the team that is limping into the postseason, and that is the Miami Dolphins. Now, I'm going to be very clear here. This ranking is indicative of the Miami Dolphins without Tua, okay? They got Skylar Thompson. They still have a good run game. Their defense leaves some to be desired, and honestly, after watching that Jets-Dolphins game, I believe all of us need to get some kind of compensation because that game was an abomination to God or whatever deity you believe in. But the Dolphins, they finally didn't screw it up or screw their players up. Instead, they punched their ticket by kicking a game-winning field goal in an ugly game with the Jets, in which on the ground, they were able to get 162 rushing yards, which was pretty darn impressive. Waddle, I know he was shaken up a little bit with an injury, and the defense did enough against a really bad Jets offense. And the Dolphins, I want to rank them higher, and we'll see how Tua progresses. As of recording this video on Monday night, there is no news about Tua if he is actually going to play, and it makes a lot of sense if he doesn't play considering what he has gone through this season. And the Dolphins can be a very dangerous team, but they are going into a hostile environment in Buffalo, and it is going to not only be cold, but it's going to be energetic in that crowd. And on top of that, they are missing Tua, who kind of allows that offense to function the way it was intended to, being a high-flying offense. So right now, without their starting QB, the Dolphins are at number 14. They had this losing streak, and they were able to just sneak in because the Patriots lost, and they were able to get that W. But it's going to take a whole lot more for them to get a win this weekend. Number 13, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay, well, let's put it this way. The Buccaneers were able to punch their ticket because they had a really great performance against the Carolina Panthers. And by really great performance, I mean they had a really good fourth quarter. Mike Evans was phenomenal in that game. 3 touchdowns, over 200 yards, finally establishing that connection or reestablishing that connection, which really hasn't been present all season. The defense has gotten a little bit healthier. And the Buccaneers are just not a great football team right now. That's not to say that they can't win, because it's Tom Brady, and if we know anything about Tom Brady,
if I had to, I could clean out my desk in 5 seconds, and nobody would ever know I had ever been here.
He could always be problematic. And they're playing the Cowboys this weekend, who are such a boom or bust team. They absolutely could beat the Cowboys, and they're playing at home. But Tom Brady, he played a little bit against the Falcons, went 13 for 17, 84 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then they wound up pulling the starter, so you can't really analyze anything off that. all you have is just this season. The offensive line, obviously banged up. On top of that, the pass rush of the Cowboys could definitely be a problem. But the Buccaneers, as I said before, there really just hasn't been a lot of consistency. Tom Brady wasn't god-awful this year, but he wasn't at his usual level. The ebbs and flows of the run game were non-existent one. The issues with the head coach, offensive coordinator is kind of just led to a very meh team. They don't have a great record, and so because of that, they're sitting at number 13. Number 12, you got the Seattle Seahawks. You're welcome. The Seahawks able to punch their ticket to the postseason after an overtime win against the LA Rams, and the Lions defeating the Packers on Sunday Night Football. And the Seahawks, they got it done. They got it done. Just screw the Packers again, and they benefit, huh? Why don't you run it on the one on the Super Bowl, you a-holes? And honestly, this should be the Detroit Lions, but Seattle ruins everything.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
And yes, I obviously have a lot of negative feelings towards Seattle, and I'm trying to work on it through therapy. But I do have to give my hat off to Geno Smith, who has been playing really well this season. He should be the comeback player of the year. Against the Rams, went 19 for 31, a little over 200 yards, 1 touchdown, had 2 interceptions. But of course, the star was Kenneth Walker, who had 114 yards on 29 carries. And Seahawks, if you want any shot in hell in beating the San Francisco 49ers, you're going to have to find a way to run the ball. These teams obviously have played each other twice already. The Seahawks lost both of those matchups, and I honestly don't know if anything's going to change heading into this third matchup. The Seahawks are a decent team, like they're a solid football team, but they're just another team that's kind of just middle of the pack for me, and so I don't know how far they're really going to go, and I think that unfortunately their hopes and aspirations are going to end this wild card weekend. But the Seahawks, they're ranked above the other two teams, so you're not last. Number 11, you got the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm giving them a little bit of leeway here because I think that there's a little bit more of an expectation that Lamar Jackson's going to return against the Bengals. But even if he doesn't, I think that the Ravens defense is solid enough. But the Ravens started Anthony Brown against the Cincinnati Bengals, in which was just an ugly game. The defense actually played pretty darn well for the Baltimore Ravens. And the only reason that they're this high besides the defense is, like I said, Lamar Jackson could come back. The issue is, though, their offense. I mean, when Lamar Jackson's back there, he can make it go a little bit better. When he's not, yeah, Greg Roman is back there. And honestly, Greg Roman's offensive scheme, I think, is more like a pyramid scheme, and Lamar Jackson at this point might just want out.
It's not a pyramid scheme. It's not even a scheme per se.
I have to go make a call.
And the Ravens are this weird team because Jackson's been out for so long. What kind of game shape is he going to be in when he returns, if he returns against the Bengals? And on top of that, the Bengals are a very, very good football team. With that being said, maybe they could be a dark horse team if Lamar comes out firing. But as of right now, they're kind of in the bottom half of this list, and we'll see what they do against the Kitty Goes Meow. Number 10, and I think this is too high, but you got the New York Giants. You should be New Jersey, just like the Jets, but you keep winning, so I'm going to allow it. The Giants, well, let's put it this way. They are a very well-coached football team, and hell, even with their backups, they had Davis Webb rocking back there against the Eagles. They almost came back and defeated them. They got a little bit of a resurgence at the end of that game. But the Giants have basically taken a practice squad and have somehow made the playoffs. All those injuries, and they're still kicking, which honestly is impressive. Brian Dable, for me, is the coach of the year. Daniel Jones has had his best year. On top of that, Saquon Barkley has had his resurgence. And I know that, Giants fans might be feeling a little reminiscent. The 2007 Giants that everybody doubted, and now we see this playoff picture.
They're the same picture.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll go that far, but the Giants are a scrappy football team, and they are taking on the Minnesota Vikings, a team that I think they definitely can beat. A few weeks ago, it went down to the wire, and they lost on a game-winning field goal. So the Giants definitely could cause some problems here. I do think that they're a year or so away from them really being contenders, but hey, they made it to the dance, and because of the teams beneath them, they're a top 10 team in the playoffs. So Even if you lose, you got that to hold on to. Number 9, you got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look at you, Spotted Kitties. Look at you. Listen, Doug Peterson is basically throwing Trevor Lawrence out there just hoping that he saves the season, and it's worked so far. But it's the defense that has been coming up pretty clutch. It did against the Texans game, and it definitely did against the Titans game. And Trevor Lawrence, listen, he's been having a very, very good season. He's also up there for Comeback Player of the Year. Not because, you know, he went through trials and tribulations, but more so he went through Urban Meyer. And they were able to clinch the AFC South, taking down the Tennessee Titans. And Lawrence was solid, 20 for 32, 212 yards, 1 touchdown, but was pressured a lot by that good defensive front of the Titans. And now they're going up against the LA Chargers, which honestly might be the game of the weekend, and I'm really looking forward to it. The Jaguars are another dark horse team in the AFC. They've won their last 5 games, and they are not the Jaguars of old. And while I know a lot of fans are just happy to be in this spot, they potentially could make a run if that defense is able to settle down. Their pass rush is actually able to get after opposing quarterbacks, because I know that was a problem earlier this season. And so right now, the Jaguars are playing with house money, and let's see if they can hit the jackpot, baby.
I already won the lottery. I was born in the US of A, baby.
Number 8. You got the purple incarnation of Satan. You got the Minnesota Vikings. And you're lucky I'm putting you at 8. If I did my power rankings last week, you were at 10, and the Packers were above you. But I didn't do it. Yep, I'm going to be streaming this playoff game from my house. And, you know how that's going to feel?
Well, this is going to hurt like a mother.
And the reason why I have the Vikings this low is not because I hate them. It's not because I think they are the epitome of all that is evil in the world. It's not just because their stadium kills all those birds and honestly, they should just shut it all down. It's not because they stole Iceland's chant of Skull. It's not because The Northman, I was a little disappointed in that movie and I really wanted it to be better. No. The reason that I'm this way about them is because they're so damn inconsistent. Them and the Cowboys are the most boomer bust playoff teams I've seen in quite some time. The Vikings can go out there, they can put up a ton of points. Dalvin Cook can run over opponents. Justin Jefferson can get 200 yards. But for some reason, the Vikings are barely able to put it together week after week. And listen, they've won a lot of games. They won their division. They earned the right to be here. But they've also gotten the crap slapped out of them by the Packers, by the Eagles, by the Cowboys. And that's a bit concerning. So the Vikings, yeah, you beat the Bears. Good job. But I don't have any confidence in them. And I really feel like they are either a first-round exit or they're going to make their way to the Super Bowl, in which then, yeah, I'm going to have to defenestrate myself. But right now, Vikings, you're sitting at number 8. You're taking on the Giants. I don't know if you're going to win. I hope you don't. No bias, though. Number 7, you got the other boomer bust team. You got the Dallas Cowboys. Well, they played their starters. They took on the Commanders, and they got their ass kicked. Cooper Rush is sitting on the sidelines after watching Dak just stink it up the entire time, thinking,
Should have burned this place down when I had a chance.
Dak, 14 for 37, 128 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. They really couldn't establish the run game. And yeah, this was ugly. If there's another team that I have the most concerns about, it is the Dallas Cowboys. They have no momentum going into the postseason. They're also going to be on the road. They have the nice record, but they're going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Florida, so I don't know if they're going to win. They are going to need to get after Tom Brady constantly. And Dak, I mean, they're just going to need to be able to run the ball. And listen, the Buccaneers defense is nowhere near where it was, but if they're able to stop the run, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys could be in trouble. So right now, the Cowboys are at that midway point. They could go to the Super Bowl, but again, consistency has been a problem for them all year. I just don't trust them enough to really believe in them. And so because of that, they're sitting at number 7. Number 6, you got the LA Chargers. Can I ask what the hell that was? For some reason, Brandon Staley was like, you know what? Let's just play our starters, risking all of this injury in basically a meaningless game. It's basically like this.
Parkour.
The defense of the Chargers did not look so great. Now, they were going up against a really good defense in the Broncos, so they weren't able to establish a run game, but that has kind of been consistent. Austin Eckler, he'll have these games where they utilize him a ton, and then he disappears. Justin Herbert, really good quarterback. They have the weapons. Mike Williams, thankfully, it doesn't seem like his injury is too serious, but just really questionable coaching there. The Chargers are taking on the Jaguars this weekend. As I said before, I think that's going to be a really, really fun game. And if the Chargers get hot, they could cause problems in the AFC because they can put up points. Now, at the same time, the AFC really doesn't have an amazing defense, so they could play that to their advantage as well. They're really going to need Justin Herbert to have a great game. You're going to need to have great play calling, and I just don't know if the coaching is going to be consistent enough, but the personnel is there for the Chargers to do well, so we'll see what wins out. And now we get into the top 5, and these are the real contenders here. Starting off with number 5, you got the kitty goes meow Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals have won 8 straight games. They've been pretty damn good. And I imagine the entire game plan against the Ravens is going to be Zach Taylor just looking over at the other sideline and seeing Greg Roman and thinking,
would an idiot do that? And if they would, I do not do that thing.
But the Bengals only 55 rushing yards against a good Ravens defense. Joe Burrow, 25 for 42, 215, 1 touchdown, was sacked 2 times. Thankfully, didn't need a coin flip, and I know there's Bengals fans out there that are a bit upset. Thankfully, they beat the Ravens, so that really doesn't matter. They're hosting this home game. And the Bengals, theoretically, they could have been the number 1 overall seed. Unfortunately, we will never know, though I imagine we'll see the Bengals and Bills next week facing off in the divisional round, which should be a phenomenal game. But right now, I think the Bengals are the 3rd best team in the AFC. Again, we won't find out until potentially next week between the Bills and the Bengals. I think the Bengals should be able to take care of business against the Ravens. Might be a little bit harder against Lamar Jackson. But right now, you're the top 5 kitty cats. Let's see if you go meow. Number 4, you got the Philadelphia Eagles, who get a little vacation with their bye week.
I'm in Florida for a month without my family. I'm going to enjoy this.
Clinching the number 1 overall seed, Jalen Hurts returning against the New York Giants, and as I said before, defense kind of allowed the Giants backups back into it. Thankfully, they were able to recover the onside kick and take care of business. The Eagles are higher than the Bengals right now because I think what the Eagles have shown is that they can be an absolute force in which they could run the ball for over 300 yards, which they have done a couple of times this season. Jalen Hurts, he has the scrambling ability, and so does Joe Burrow, but even more so for Jalen Hurts. Of course, they have great receivers, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. They have all of these weapons. And I think the Eagles might just be one of the more potent offenses in the playoffs right now. They can go toe-to-toe with any team and can put up the points. The defense has been pretty damn solid as well. They can get after the quarterback. They usually can stop the run. And I think what bodes really well for them is this allows Jalen Hurts, who returned from injury, to get a little bit extra healing time, and they should be able to take down whoever they face in the divisional round. So right now, the Eagles, you're chilling at number 4. You got the 1 seed. Let's see if you can get the Lombardi again. Number 3, you got the Buffalo Bills. Whew. That was an emotional game on Sunday against the Patriots. And I just got to think, Hines returning the opening kickoff for a touchdown. The second that he got another opportunity, he was thinking this.
I want another try. Here we go.
And what I thought was actually going to be a blowout turned out to be a really, really close game. And that just brings me to my concern. The defense is a bit of a concern for me for the Buffalo Bills. But as I mentioned, I don't think that there is really an elite defense in the AFC, so they should be okay on that front. In addition, some costly turnovers has kind of been a little bit of a theme for the Buffalo Bills. But overall, I still think the Bills are a very, very good football team. Josh Allen, he freaking showed it on Sunday, can launch the ball into the sun and it will just fall into the end zone. His connection with Stephon Diggs is just otherworldly. You have so many weapons on that team. And if they're able to establish the run with guys like Cook and Singletary and not fumble the ball, they will be a tough team to take down. So right now, they are the number 3 team. And for the Bills, they're just hoping that it's Buffalo all the way this time. We'll see if they're right. Number 2, you have the most consistent team in the NFL. They got a 10-game win streak. You got the San Francisco 49ers. Oh boy, yeah, 10 wins in a row. They're impressive. defeating the Arizona Cardinals. It was a little close in the beginning, and they're doing it all with Brock Purdy behind center. And this weekend, they're ready to go Seahawk hunting. For a third time. George Kittle has been a monster these past few weeks. The offense is great. The defense is suffocating. And listen, this comes after a game with the Raiders, which was a little bit concerning, in which they took them into overtime. The defense didn't look as good. Brock Purdy looked a little bit more human. But I think it's still going to be quite the Herculean task to try and take down the San Francisco 49ers. It's tough for them to establish a monumental comeback because that's just not what this team is built for. However, because of that, they are just going to run the ball down your throat, and their defense is going to keep the score relatively low. The 49ers, in my opinion, are the best team in the NFC, though they did not get the first round bye. I think they are the one team you do not want to face in the NFC. And right now, they're sitting at the number 2 spot. And what I think will probably be the NFC Championship game between the Eagles and 49ers will be a phenomenal game. And finally, number 1, you got the Kansas City Chiefs. And I struggled with this if I really wanted to give them the number 1 spot because they've been inconsistent. They almost lost to the Broncos, so did the Chargers. They've had games where Mahomes has been off. The turnovers have been bad. The defense hasn't been good. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs have just continued to find ways to win the game. Whether it's spinning around in a snow globe or whether it's the defense being suffocating like it was against the Seahawks, the Chiefs are just a monster team and they have home field advantage. Now, I will say, AFC Championship, that might not matter at all. But they got a first round bye. Patrick Mahomes is just carrying this franchise to greatness.
Your department's just you, right?
Yes, Jim, but I am not easy to manage.
Went 18 for 26 for over 200 yards and 1 tutty this past week. But the main story was the run game, 168 rushing yards total. And on top of that, the defense was able to get 6 sacks against a Raiders team who, again, took the 49ers to the limit. Now, there are definitely flaws in the Chiefs game. You can look at their defense not being consistent. You can look at the turnovers, like I said. But I just find it so difficult to count out Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Mahomes is likely to be the MVP this season, which is well-deserved. And because of that, the Chiefs are currently sitting at number 1 for me. And until they get knocked off, that's where they'll be. So just to recap, at number 1, you got the Chiefs, 2 the 49ers, 3 the Bills, 4 the Eagles, 5 the Bengals, 6 the Chargers, 7 the Cowboys, 8 the Vikings, 9 the Jaguars, 10 the Giants, 11 the Ravens, 12 the Seahawks, 13 the Buccaneers, and 14 the Dolphins. Now, I will say this is a really difficult power rankings to do just because, like I said, there's a couple of boomer bust teams. There's so many middle of the road teams. And I think you just have 5 really good teams in the playoffs this year. That doesn't mean diddly squat now because it's a brand new season and anything can happen. And all I know is I'm very excited to watch. But let me know what you think. You guys find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy and the YouTube members. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.